I still remember the exact moment I realized I'd made a mistake. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, the wedding day. There I was, standing at the altar, palms sweating through my rented tux, trying to focus on Sarah as she walked down the aisle. My heart was pounding. Not from nerves, at least not the kind you'd expect. It was something else, a strange mix of hope and unease. Sarah looked stunning, no doubt. She always had this grace about her. Quiet confidence, the kind that made you feel like everything would be okay just because she was next to you. That was the woman I fell in love with. The one who used to cheer me on when I pulled all-nighters working on tech projects. The one who'd bring me coffee without asking and tell me I was going to change the world someday. But in that moment, walking toward me in her white dress, I didn't see that version of her anymore. She looked distant, like she was walking into a role rather than toward a person. And surrounding her, in the front two rows of the church, was her family, cold, judgy. Her dad, Harold, with his arms crossed and jaw clenched like he was attending a funeral. Her mom, Deborah, fanning herself and whispering something into her sister's ear while eyeing me like I was the help. I could practically hear the disapproval radiating off them like static electricity. From the beginning, they never saw me as good enough for Sarah. I was a software engineer, just starting out, to be honest. I didn't have a fancy title or flashy income. I didn't come from a wealthy family. My parents were teachers, modest and humble people who taught me to earn everything I had. Harold, on the other hand, had been a high-ranking VP at some logistics corporation, now retired and spending his time bragging about his golf handicap and former corner office. Deborah? She ran a charity board and carried herself like she was queen of the suburbs. They always saw Sarah as some kind of investment, a princess they were grooming for a better future. A future that, apparently, didn't include a guy like me. Still, I thought love could overpower all of that. I was wrong. The whispers started before the ceremony even began. As I stood outside waiting with my best man, I overheard two of Sarah's uncles talking behind a hedge. "Guy's a coder, right?" one said, laughing. "Doesn't even own a house. She's marrying a loser." I laughed it off. Shook it off, really. But it stuck. Then came the photo session after the ceremony. I was adjusting my boutonniere when I heard Harold say, "Let's see how long this lasts," followed by that same word again. Loser. He wasn't whispering anymore. He said it like he wanted me to hear, like it gave him satisfaction to knock me down a peg on my wedding day. I turned toward him, but he was already walking away, straightening his tie with that smug smirk he always wore when he felt superior. I felt a rush of heat in my chest. My jaw clenched. My mind screamed, "Say something. Stand up for yourself." But then I looked at Sarah. She was smiling at the photographer, lost in her own world. I thought, don't ruin her day. Be the bigger person. That's what she always said when it came to her parents. So I swallowed it, like I'd been swallowing it for months. Dinner was a blur. Toasts were awkward. Her dad didn't even mention me in his speech. He just toasted Sarah's future and whatever life brings. Her mom kept referring to her childhood dreams of marrying someone stable and successful. No one from my side noticed. Or maybe they just didn't say anything out of politeness. But I felt it. I felt it in every offhand comment, every forced smile, every dismissive look. I went to bed that night with a knot in my stomach. Not because of the ceremony or the vows or the fact that I was now a married man, but because deep down, I knew I had just tied myself to a family that didn't respect me. Worse, they didn't see me. And something inside me, something I didn't fully understand yet, began to stir. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was resolve. If I had any hope that marriage would change the dynamic between me and Sarah's family, it vanished quickly. The first few months weren't terrible, just strained. Sarah and I settled into a one-bedroom apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. I had my 9-to-5 job as a software engineer, and at night I worked on my side project, a small platform I was developing called Task Nova. It was supposed to help small businesses automate scheduling, invoices, and payment collection. I'd seen too many independent workers struggling with administrative stuff, and I thought, what if I could build something that took all of that off their plate? It wasn't flashy, and it definitely wasn't making money yet, but it mattered to me. Sarah at first pretended to be supportive. She'd ask how it was going in the same way you ask a neighbor about their garden. Polite, detached, uninterested. "You still doing that little business thing?" she'd say, barely looking up from her phone. I'd show her new features I built or emails from early users. She'd nod and say, "Cool," and go back to watching Netflix. But it wasn't just her. It was her entire family, still circling our lives like vultures at every family gathering. Her father, Harold, never missed a chance to poke at me during dinner. "So, any big clients yet?" he'd ask with a smirk, pretending to be curious. "Or still building in your garage?" Her mother wasn't much better. I told Sarah she could have married that banker from Boston. What was his name? Kevin. "Oh, he's a VP now. Runs his own team. Isn't that incredible?" It wasn't even subtle anymore. And every time I wanted to say something, every time I wanted to stand up for myself, Sarah would squeeze my knee under the table and give me that look. "Not here. Not now." So I stayed quiet, bit my tongue, smiled through it. But inside I was shrinking. I started questioning myself, my idea, my future. Was I really just a guy playing with code in his free time? Was I actually failing her? I kept pushing. Nights turned into all-nighters. I skipped weekends out with friends to work on the product. I taught myself back-end architecture and marketing funnels. I read about user psychology and UI design. Every spare dollar I had went into ads and server costs. But no matter how hard I worked, it never felt like enough for Sarah or her parents. Then came the breaking point. It was our third anniversary. I booked a nice dinner at this cozy Italian place we used to go to when we first started dating, back when we used to laugh together. I even brought flowers, wrote her a handwritten note about how grateful I was to still have her by my side through everything. She barely smiled when I handed it to her. Over pasta, she stared at me for a long time and said, "I think we rushed into this." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, look at us. You're still chasing this startup fantasy. We barely go out anymore. We don't travel. My parents were right. You're just not where you should be." I felt the air get sucked out of the room. "I believed in you," she continued. "I really did. But I can't keep pretending this is the life I want. I didn't sign up to be a co-founder's wife. I wanted stability. I just sat there, stunned. I didn't even touch my food after that. A week later, I came home from work and found half the closet empty. A note on the counter. "This isn't working. I'm staying with my parents. Please don't make this harder than it has to be." Just like that, she was gone. She filed for divorce within days, told mutual friends she needed to level up her life and that she had settled out of love. The worst part? None of it shocked me. She didn't even hate me. She just didn't see me anymore. I realized then that she had never truly believed in me. Not really. Not the way I needed. Not the way partners should. And somehow that betrayal, quiet, subtle, polished with false politeness, hurt more than any loud fight ever could. That was the day something in me died, but something else woke up. I didn't know it yet, but her leaving would become the best thing that ever happened to me. After Sarah left, I sat in our apartment alone for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just existed. The silence was so loud it became a weight on my chest. Every time I walked past her empty side of the closet or saw her toothbrushes still in the holder, it hit me again. She was really gone. And the thing is, I didn't miss her. I missed the version of myself I thought I was building with her, the version I thought she believed in. That man no longer existed. The illusion had been ripped away, and what was left was just me, broke, alone, and still not good enough in the eyes of the people who had made it their mission to remind me of that. I couldn't afford the apartment anymore, not on a single salary, not with most of my money going into Tasnova and my credit cards breathing down my neck. I didn't tell my parents, didn't want to worry them. So I called up my best friend Mark and asked if his basement was still available. He didn't ask questions, just said, "Bring your stuff." So I moved in, a single suitcase, my laptop, and the dream I refused to let die. Every day
Task
after
Nova
work,
was
I'd go
all I
down
had
into
left.
that dark basement, plug in my secondhand monitor, and just build. I taught myself everything I didn't already know: email automation, lead funnels, UI optimization, analytics. I studied how small businesses thought, interviewed handymen, tutors, dog walkers, electricians, yoga teachers. I wanted to know what frustrated them, what made them quit, what made them feel like the system was stacked against them. Then I'd stay up until 2, sometimes 3 in the morning, rewriting code, fixing bugs, uploading updates, pushing out newsletters to my 37 email subscribers like I had 10,000. It was humiliating, exhausting, and thankless. There were nights I'd cry in the dark, silently hunched over my keyboard, ashamed that I couldn't make it work fast enough. I felt like a failure, like maybe Harold was right all along. Maybe I really was a loser who'd overestimated his own potential. But every time I hovered over the delete project button, I stopped myself. Because as much as the world doubted me, as much as Sarah had abandoned me, I still believed in the core idea. I still believed that Tasnova could help people, that it mattered. And something inside me whispered, keep going. Then came the first small win. A massage therapist in Florida messaged me after using the free trial and said, "This is the only tool that doesn't feel like it was built by someone who's never run a business. I love it." She subscribed. Then she referred 2 friends. Then they referred 2 more. My subscriber base doubled in a week, from 37 to 74. I know it doesn't sound like much, but to me, it was proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. I took her testimonial and turned it into an ad. A simple quote over a photo of a massage table. I ran it for $50 on Facebook. Within 3 days, I had 200 new users. 2 weeks later, I hit 1,000. And just like that, the tide began to shift. I reinvested everything. Every cent that came in, I poured it back into the product. I upgraded the UI, built a mobile app, added a drag and drop dashboard. I started getting emails from freelancers, tutors, even wedding planners saying, "This saved me hours of time every week." Then something unexpected happened. A YouTuber, someone with over 500K subscribers, made a video about productivity tools for small businesses and included Task Nova as the hidden gem. I hadn't even reached out to him. My user base tripled in 48 hours. I didn't sleep that weekend. I answered every email. Personally, I fixed every glitch. I updated servers. And by the end of that month, I'd crossed $25,000 in recurring revenue. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just sat there staring at my screen. Not because I felt victorious, but because I finally felt seen. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the journey. The late nights, the rejection, the condescension, the voice in my head that told me to quit. I had survived all of it, and I wasn't done yet. It's funny how quickly life can shift when no one's watching. Within 2 years of moving into that basement, I had turned Tasnova from a side hustle into a full-fledged company. We hit $1 million in ARR, annual recurring revenue, and I finally moved into a sleek downtown loft, fully paid off. I built a team, carefully. I didn't want corporate sharks or ladder climbers. I hired hustlers, people like me, designers who had once freelanced for pennies, engineers from Underdog colleges, former small business owners who understood what it meant to build something from scratch. We had no glass walls, no executive hierarchy, just brilliant, hungry people who believed in the mission. We even opened a small office space. Nothing grand, but it was ours. Task Nova wasn't just a tool anymore. It was a movement, empowering small business owners to stop drowning in logistics and get back to doing what they loved. And then one Monday morning, my HR manager Priya knocked on my door. "Hey, we've got a couple applicants I think you'll want to see." I raised an eyebrow. She slid a laptop over. There they were. James Whitaker, business consultant, leadership coach, strategic advisor. And right below that, Deborah Whitaker, client services specialist, experienced in front office operations, email management, and CRM platforms. I stared at the screen in silence for almost a full minute. I wasn't even angry. I was amused. The same people who had sneered at me for being just a coder were now applying to my company for work. And they didn't even realize it. I told Priya to schedule interviews with both of them, separately. I wanted them to come in, sit down across from me, and realize exactly whose company they were hoping to join. James came first. He walked into the conference room, clearly not recognizing me from the job title alone. I'd signed the interview under my initials, NS, CEO. He wore a dated gray suit and forced a confident smile, but the desperation in his eyes was unmistakable. "Mr. Whitaker," I said, rising to shake his hand. He blinked. He paused. "Nathan?" I smiled calmly. "Good to see you again." His expression collapsed. I could see him scrambling to figure out what to say. "I didn't realize. This is your company?" I leaned back in the chair. "Yeah. Funny how things work out." He swallowed hard. "Listen, Nathan, I know things were tense back then. I want to say, first and foremost, I always respected your intelligence." That made me laugh. Actually laugh. "Really? I think the word you used at my wedding was loser." He shifted uncomfortably. "That was a different time, and I was wrong. Clearly." I paused for a long beat, then slid an offer letter across the table. It was for an entry-level contractor position. Temporary, no benefits, minimum wage. He stared at it, blinking. "Is this a joke?" "No," I said. "It's real. Just like your opinion of me back then." To his credit, he didn't get angry. He just nodded once, jaw tight, and said, "I'll think about it." Deborah came in the next day. She recognized me the second she walked through the door. "Oh my God," she said, her voice tight. "You're the CEO?" "Surprise." She tried to smile, but it cracked. "Listen, Nathan, I know we weren't close, but I always wanted Sarah to be happy." "Did you?" I interrupted. She blinked. "Because you mocked me every time I tried to build something. You called me a hobbyist, a child. You made my wife embarrassed of me. And now, you want a seat on my payroll?" I didn't shout. I didn't raise my voice. I just stared her down and handed her the same offer James got. She opened it, read the terms. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You're humiliating us." I shook my head. "Number, I'm giving you a chance, the same way you never gave me one." She didn't say another word, just walked out. 2 days later, they both accepted the offers. I assigned them to separate departments. Neither in leadership, no private offices, no VIP treatment. They lasted 6 months. They showed up, kept their heads down, avoided eye contact with me, and did their jobs. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about balance. I didn't need to humiliate them. Just watching them clock in, punch keyboards, and attend meetings hosted by 20-somethings they would have once mocked. That was enough. Every time I passed them in the hallway, I nodded politely. Just like any decent boss would, they lasted 6 months. 6 long, awkward, silent months. Harold and Deborah, the same people who used to laugh behind my back, dismiss my ambition, and call me a loser to my face, were now quietly sitting in staff meetings, taking notes from junior managers, replying to customer tickets, and clocking out like any other employee. They never caused drama. They never challenged authority. They were model employees, bland, beige, invisible, because they had to be. They lost their titles, their pride, their illusion of being untouchable. Now they were just names in an org chart, answering to people they would have once considered beneath them. And me? I had never been more at peace. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The universe had done the heavy lifting for me. I just kept building Task Nova, expanding our reach, launching new tools, hiring smart, humble people who didn't carry around a superiority complex. But then one day, I got an email from Sarah. Subject line: "Hey." Just one word, but it hit me like a gut punch. I hadn't heard from her in over 2 years. I didn't even know she had my new email. I hovered over the message for a few minutes before clicking it open. It was short. "I heard what you've built. I'm genuinely proud of you. I know I didn't support you the way I should have, and I regret that a lot. You were always meant to do something big. I just didn't see it. I hope you're happy. I really do." No request, no fishing for a second chance. Just a confession. I sat back and stared at the screen. And for the first time in years, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no need to rub anything in her face. She wasn't the villain anymore, just another person who didn't believe in me until it was too late. I closed the email and never responded because I didn't need to. Sarah had made her choice. She bet against me and lost. And honestly, I was grateful for that. If she hadn't walked away, if her family hadn't mocked me, if they hadn't tried to humiliate me on the most important day of my life, I might have stayed small. I might have played it safe. I might have stayed the version of myself they could control. But they lit a fire they couldn't put out. They gave me the fuel I needed to become undeniable. Today, TaskNova has tens of thousands of users across the globe. We've partnered with educational institutions, helped immigrant-owned shops scale into franchises, and given single parents a chance to run businesses on their own terms. We're not just profitable, we're transformational. And as for me, I don't crave validation anymore. I don't need applause. I don't post flashy cars or boast about numbers. Because the real win was looking in the mirror and seeing a man who never gave up. A man who turned rock bottom into a launch pad. A man who was called a loser and built an empire from the ashes. Now every time I pass by the old office hallway where Harold and Deborah used to sit, I smile. Not because I hate them, but because I remember what they taught me. That sometimes the best revenge is becoming everything they said you couldn't. They used to call me a loser. Now they call me boss.